All right. Thank you all for coming. I know it's really hot outside, and enjoy the AC. And hopefully you'll learn a little bit today about taming your inbox. What we're going to be talking about is how to organize messages coming into your inbox and what you can do with them and let Outlook do with them. All right. So first, who has too many email messages? Okay. Who just wants to hit delete all or reply yes to everybody and get rid of them? Don't do that. All right. What we're going to talk about today is going to be the Mailbox Rules. Has anybody actually used Mailbox Rules in Outlook? Okay, great. Then hopefully a lot of you will be more familiar with them, and a lot more will be able to use them very efficiently. And then we're also going to talk briefly about the auto archiving within Outlook. And this is basically just how Outlook is going to be able to file away some of the old messages that you may not need right away and at your fingertips. So first, rules. Make them go where you want. With rules, you can have messages send to your inbox folders and get them out of your inbox. You can automatically delete messages or reply messages from specific senders. You can assign importance or follow-up flags to your messages so that those will be, have a little reminder that you need to follow up on this messages from this person or this topic. And there's a whole bunch of other things that we may not be able to get to today, but you'll see where you can find those options. All right. So a few things that you want to know about rules. All right. Every rule has a condition, which is something that is going to trigger Outlook to do something with a message. All right, this can be messages sent by a specific person, may contain specific keywords, may be from a specific email address, like anybody from medcornell.edu or from AOL.com. Those are all types of conditions that you can set. The second thing that you should know is every rule has an action. So once a condition has been met, it's got to do something with that message. And that can be something as simple as moving a message to another folder. You can have it mark the message as read. You can have it delete it. Be careful with that one, as you may accidentally delete everything coming in from your manager. And then there's also exceptions. And those are rules that will say if a message came in from somebody, move it to someone unless they say this is not important or just an FYI. And then the rules skip that message. All right. So I'm just going to jump right to it. I'm going to actually work on my own inbox, and I'm going to set up one or two rules real quick so you guys can get an idea of how that works. And if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand and I'll answer them the best I can, okay? So we're going to hop right over to my inbox here. And as you could see, I have 0 unread messages. I know it's impressive. All right. However, you could see folders here. There are unread messages that do need to be addressed, but we're not going to worry about those another time. All right. But what you can see here, there's a lot of emails coming in all over the place. One thing that I started getting recently is some acceptance notices from some meetings that I don't need in my inbox. I'm going to put it into a folder that I have called Training Calendar. All right. So how you can create a rule to do something is from your home ribbon, there's a section that says rules. You can click the drop down, and then you could go down to create a rule. All right. I'm going to show you the long way around, because the short way around, you may not learn as much. So we're going to do it the long way. All right. First thing that comes up after you hit a rule is there's some preset options that are very common to use. And these options will be set based off of the message that is currently in your reading pane or that is selected in your inbox. All right. Right now, there's a message from Vanessa. It has a subject and people that it was sent to, and then it has some things that it can do with that. We're not exactly what I want it to do, so we're going to go under advanced options. All right, and this brings up a rule wizard. All right, it's maybe a little bit hard to see. I am going to have a little job aid that I'm going to send out to everybody after this Tech Tuesday presentation, going through all the steps in a little bit more detail so you can reference afterward. All right, now what you can do is you can have it set by specific conditions. So say a message from Vanessa, a message that's sent only to me, a message that has a specific importance, a message that you're in the carbon copy. All of those are triggers, all right? We're gonna do, I want a message sent from somebody, but unfortunately it's not gonna be Vanessa, all right? The one that I want is from this WC-WBG training. So what you're gonna do is actually, you know what? A little bit better way to finish this. Cancel that. Let's go. Cancel. Go into there. All right. Go into here. Create rule. Advanced. Okay. So here we go. This is from a listserv actually. All right. If you do have to change it, at the bottom of this rules wizard, this is the entire rules script, and anything that's underlined, you can click on and you could change. So if you want to put in somebody else's name or change that, you can do that there as well. All right. So we're going to do, when a rule with a message arrives that is from that email. All right. So now you're going to hit next. And then what you're going to do with that message. What I want to do is I want to move it to a specific folder. All right. And then down here, you can see it says move it to a specified folder. Click that. All right, and now it's going to bring up your mailbox list. If you happen to have a folder already set up in your inbox that you want to move a message to, great. If you don't, and this is something new that you just want to add something to it, you can click the new icon, the new button here, and then you can just give it it'll set up a new folder under your inbox, so you don't have to worry about having that pre-set up. So, but for this message, I do have something set up already. So I'm just going to select training calendar. All right, now it's going to move that message to the training calendar. And also you can see here under the actions that it can take, you can have it deleted. You can make it move a copy to somewhere else, forward it to some other people. You can add a flag or mark it as a high importance if you want. All right, for now, that's good enough for what I need to do. So I'm just going to hit next. All right, now these are the exceptions. So now you can look through this list and see if there's any reasons why you don't want it to be moved. If I wanted to set it as, say there's a word in the subject that says canceled, I can add that in there. So that will stay in my inbox, and I'll see that a little quicker. All right, but for now, we're just going to leave it as is, and we'll hit next. And then you're going to give that rule a name, and that's pretty much just going to be the name of the email address or the subject that you're going by. And then what you can do on the second step here is you can select the rule to run now. So it'll scan through your entire inbox. If it finds any messages that meet that rule, it'll move it over to the folder for you. And then you can have that rule turned on. All right, and then you can just hit finish. And now it's going to scan through. And you can see already there are 3 messages here. That's gone. And if I go over to my train, now I can cancel that. Still processing. Updating the server. Also, one thing to know about rules, who uses the Outlook client on their desktop? Okay, and then everybody else, they use the O365 portal? Okay, or the webmail client. Anything that you, sure. So for people who are checking the mail, have to go to a website and go to o365.med.cornell.edu. That's the web portal. That's the online version of Outlook. For people who use Outlook, they will have an Outlook icon on the desktop. They launch that, and it comes into a program similar to what I'm. That's the client, yeah. Yeah. So anything that you do in the client automatically gets uploaded to the server so that if you use both, the rules will be in both locations. So it's synchronized. All right. It can be done on the Mac, same way. You're in the home ribbon and there's a rules section under the, you should have something there that says move under home, and it should be right there. If you don't see it, you could send me an email or send an email to ITS training, and I'll point it out to where it is on the Mac. Unfortunately, I have a PC. All right, but now we go under the training calendar, and now you could see all the messages that I have that are from the training folder. All right. Any questions about rules so far? No? Yes.
I wonder, it seems like it's easy to identify an individual sender. Say, if I get a message from this person, I want to put it in this box here.
Yeah.
What if there are maybe 100 senders whose messages you would like to go into the same box? For example, students who are taking a course.
Okay, so what you would do, there has to be a certain commonality amongst all those messages. I find that like with, you can have a rule that has a list of senders. It gets very bulky that it has to scan through all that. You can add individual email addresses though. However, what you can also do is say for students, say it's regarding a specific class name registration, all right? You can create a rule that will look at the subject. And let's see here. That is, here we go. And there's one here that says with, it'll have something there in the subject or body. And then you could click on that and you can remove those keywords, and then you could do registration. And then you could add that in. If there's multiple things that you want to match, you can add multiple phrases in there. All right. And then Outlook will pick up on those keywords or phrases in both the subject and the body of the message. Okay. Any other questions about rules? Yes.
You sure how to add multiple people?
Sure, sure. Sure. So what you could do for multiple people, you go to the from, you click on there, and now say I want to add, let's see, oops, let's go with Z. Okay. All right. So what you can do, just hypothetically, I'm going to pick a bunch of names here. All right. And again, you could go in, you could put in a few names, select them, hit the little from icon down here. And then if you wanted to go down, you could scroll down and keep on adding names from the directory. If you happen to have the specific email address, you can manually enter it in here, and you can just put a semicolon space and just type in the full email address. And then add that in there. All right, and then you could just add that in. It'll scan for all of those people. Just know that a rule is very literal. So if you have it sent from those people, that means that every message from that person will go into the folder. If it's regarding a specific topic or a reason why they're emailing, make sure you go by, have like a common subject that they can reply to. And then that will filter all of those messages. Okay, yes?
Can you use a rule to schedule a response for an email?
So what you can have it automatically respond to somebody. So right now I got subsystem error, but you can hit next, and then under the condition, there is a reply using a template. And what you can do here, and this is going to be, this is something that you have to have pre-configured within Outlook to have the template set up as like a auto away message or something like that. However, if you're doing it as an auto away message, it's sometimes better just to use the system's automatic auto away.
Where do you
So that,
Aside from the go away message.
so that is a good question here. That one I'm going to actually have to get back to you, as I've never actually used the templates before. So but I can send you an email back regarding the templates and where to find them as well.
Can you schedule an outline?
You can't set it up as through a rule. It doesn't do time. That's one of the limitations. It doesn't have a way that you can set it from date A to date B to send out this message. Okay. Any other questions about the rules? No? Okay. Yeah. Cancel you. Cancel that. Okay. Okay. And the next thing that I want to talk about is auto archive. All right, sometimes you have a lot of messages that have just been sticking around for way too long, and you want Outlook to kind of filter those into a separate mailbox. All right, Outlook has an auto archive feature, which will automatically move old items into a separate mailbox. It's called a PST file, and that's automatically set up when you enable auto archive. And then the items are considered old at a age that you specify. So if you feel that anything older than 6 months is old enough, fine. If you need something, you know, even going back a year that you still need, you can have it set to a year, or you can just have it set to like 2 or 3 months old and it'll go to auto archive. All right. And then you can have auto archive either delete those messages, which I never advise, or you can have them just move it to that archive folder. All right, and we're just gonna do another quick demo on that. Now, the one thing with auto archive, it does have to be done on the computer in the client. This is not a feature that works with O365. All right, now to do that, what you do is when you're in your Outlook client, click on the file, and then you go down to here under, is it tools? And clean up old items, all right? And this will archive folders and files with anything under the inbox. And then you could archive items older than, and you could specify a date. And again, this could be anything from a few months ago, a year ago, whatever date you want to set up. All right, and we're just gonna do, we could just do, say, everything. We'll do December 31st of 2016. All right. And then you can just, and then what happens down here, it's going to give a file path. And this is going to be where that archive is being stored on your computer. One thing to note, that if you do have an archive, it does not transfer automatically from a computer to a computer. You must make sure that that folder or file is moved with you if you go to a different computer, if you need to get that archive. Right. And if you want to select a different location, you can hit browse, and you can enter a different name for it, or you can enter a different location. It technically can, but it is not recommended at all, because there's a lot of lag sometimes with communicating with the server. And if the server's not connected to the computer at that time, it'll generate errors in Outlook, and it may have problems opening up Outlook at any time that you're trying to access it. So you may start getting errors saying Outlook cannot access archive over and over again. So it's always best to keep that archive on the computer when it's archiving. If you want to take that file and back it up, make a copy of it and put it on the server, you can do that.
Can it be automated function?
You'd have to get a little bit of scripting or something like that involved to make it automatic. That's not something that could be done within Outlook, though. All right, so then you just hit OK. And then what it's going to do, it's just going to check through my mailbox in the background. and it's just going to automatically archive. If you look at the bottom, you can see here that's saying archiving. It's got a little progress meter. And depending on how far back you're going or how many messages you get, that time can vary a lot. Sometimes it'll be 10, 15 minutes. I've seen it take 2 or 3 hours. All right. However, mine wasn't that backed up, so it's already done. All right. Any questions about that?
What do you recommend for the other client?
All right. For clients on multiple machines, honestly, archiving may not be the best solution. This is because you're going to start generating multiple copies of an archive on each machine. Right now, I mean, our space on our Exchange server is really vast. You know, we have a lot of space. I think we got, what is it? We have about almost 100 gigs of storage space with Outlook, and that does take a long time to fill. If somebody does have that much messages that they do have to archive it, they would have to pick whichever machine is their primary one and maintain the archive there, just to keep things not as confusing when you're working on multiple machines. So the archive, once it's been archived, Outlook will create another folder at the bottom here, and it says archives, and all your messages are going to be within here.
So it's going to copy the same structure that you have. In
Whatever's right at that time of archiving. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Okay, maybe I just missed this, but supposing you want to read a message which is archived, you have to unarchive it in some way.
No.
PST file.
No, it's going to actually load that. It's going to take a little bit of time the first time you open it to bring it up. As you can see here, I'm going into some deleted items I had archived. And it's just taking some time, but that list will pop up. And you can read them right there. You can permanently delete them or do whatever you want with them. If you want to get them out of the archive and put them back into your inbox, you can drag and drop them as well.
Can you search the archive?
Yes, absolutely. Once it, again, first time that you create it, if you have a lot, first time that it's opening, it's going to take a while to build that table of contents, like it is right here. But once that's done, you can do a search like you would with any other mailbox. Yes?
I've been working on a PC on Windows,
Mm-hmm.
and I move it to a Mac. The archives compatible?
The PST files are compatible with a Mac as long as you do have a modern version of Outlook. Years ago, like 2003, there was incompatibilities. However, if you're on a Mac, try to go to a PC, you have to make sure that your archive is saved as a PST on the Mac. Mac Outlook uses a different file type called an OWL, and that's not compatible on the PC version. Okay. Any other questions about archiving?
More than one archive.
You can have more than one archive, and what you would do is you'd go back under the tools, go to clean up, and where you specify the name, you could hit browse, and then you could just do archive 2 or name it whatever you want for like the date or year or whatever. All right, and then what that will do is under your Outlook where it has archives, there'll be yet another one that says archive or whatever the new name is. Good? All right. Let's just go back. Okay, so a little bit more serious here. This morning, I got this very important looking message. All right, this is from Agent Eric Jackson. He says that he's from the FBI. That kind of caught my attention. All right. However, when I looked into this a little bit more, I noticed a few things, all right? First off, I don't think they use agent in their name when they're corresponding. The second thing is, I don't think the FBI uses a @space.ocn.ne.jp email address. That seemed a little bit weird to me. I looked a little bit further into this. All right. I don't know if anybody knows this, but Fort Worth, last time I checked, it was 2 words. FBI is very detail oriented. I don't think they let a mistake like that pass. Continue reading. Special agent in charge. Thought that was 2 words, but I could be wrong. This is the FBI we're talking about. All right. They found some consignment boxes at the airport for me. It contained a large amount of money, a large sum of money. That's good news. But apparently, after reading this, there was some paperwork that was missing. Must have been an error on my part. All right. So what they had to do is they had no choice than to confiscated your consignment. I was very sad about that. All right. Then they have some legal stuff that I have to apparently fill out a form, which I did investigate. This form does exist, so it must be legit. All right. And then it says I'm required to respond back within 72 hours for normalization and release of my boxes to be delivered to my address. I don't know about you, but this email seems a little bit fishy. All right. I did not write back to them. This is obviously a phishing attempt trying to get my private information. One good thing that came through this email, it did give some really good advice. I highlighted in green. It says, I am instructed to desist any further contact with any banks or persons from Nigeria or the United Kingdom. So that's good news. That's good advice they gave me right there. All right. But in all seriousness, phishing emails. All right. Everybody, I'm sure, has got them. We've had people who have responded to them. We've had people send their personal information. Be aware of phishing emails and attempts to get your information. If you feel that you may have a message that is a phishing attempt, all right, you can forward the message to spam@med.cornell.edu, and our security team will investigate that message. All right. We do have a website dedicated to your email security and phishing attempts, which is phish.wild.cornell.edu. All right. On that website, it does provide several tips for identifying messages. Many of those I've highlighted in my email. That website saved me from responding to this message. All right. It is important. You know, there are people out there in the world that are trying to get as much information as possible on everybody and use them for nefarious reasons. I just want to bring that up to everybody's attention and make sure that they are aware that we do have a site up for everybody's security, and we have tips, and we have an email address that you can forward these messages to help get them blocked by security.